around 50% of people with FND can end up in wheelchairs, or with they can get seizures. Thank God I haven't, touched wood, but I'm managing them better, and my quality of life is improving. And if I'm able to spread some sort of joy or some love from that, or some inspiration, I really... So hi Martin.
Hi Jodie, welcome to Peace
Yeah.
Unplugged. Okay,
Thanks
Jodie,
for having
would you
me.
like to tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I have been on a bit of a journey the last couple of years. Quite a difficult journey, but is somewhat got a positive end or story on it, or I'm definitely manifesting this happy ending that's happening. So, my background, I've always worked in high pressure sales and marketing, advising businesses for 25 years. Loved my job, loved my career. And then over COVID, I think that there was a lot of stress in the general population. Lots of people, were under a lot more pressure, a very unprecedented time for lots of people, and lots of people that have still kind of suffered since then as well. Whether that's mentally, physically, whatever that looks like. And unfortunately, I was sort of one of those people through a number of different situations that probably came together and made up a bit of a perfect storm, so to speak. So at the time, I was a single mum. I was juggling, as I say, high workloads, high work pressures, very unnatural time, unable to get out of the house to look after myself, to do any walking. I mean, we were only allowed, weren't we, to go out once. Found myself working exceptionally long hours in order to constantly catch up. So never really sort of switched off from any of the stress that was around me at that time. I'd always had a history, so I always had a vulnerability around mental health, because I'd been diagnosed around the age of 20 in my last year at university with chronic anxiety and depression. And this has been a bit of a theme throughout my whole life, of having these sort of ups and downs throughout my whole life of mental health battles. And more recently, actually, I was diagnosed with ADHD about 18 months ago. So that makes a lot of sense to me now, being able to reflect back on that and understand a bit more about myself, what was going on, in my childhood and my teens, adolescence, sort of later years, etc., and why I'd always got this reoccurring problem. And it never really affected my career or anything, fortunately, until that time over COVID, when, as I say, everything came together, and I contracted pneumonia and pleurisy. And I had quite a few emergency admissions to hospital and ambulances because of not being able to breathe and stuff. I had to go through quite a long rehabilitation period with that, because I got scarring on my lungs and had to have lots of steroids, inhalers. That resulted in me putting a substantial as well amount of weight on and getting lots of fatigue and different other problems that come again from excess weight gain around pre-diabetes, hypertension, and sleep apnea. And it basically continued to compound through this stressful environment that I found myself in quite an unsupported situation, whereby I had kind of a neurological sort of breakdown, or this was already happening during this time anyway, and it's resulted in what they thought was motor neurons. Thank God it wasn't, because again, that's degenerative. So I feel massively for people like that are dealing with that and having to live with the consequences of that. But it does manifest itself in a similar kind of way. It's called functional neurological disorder, which is where I was experiencing right side problems with mobility, having lots of falls. I dropped a boiling kettle down myself and ended up with severe burns. I had another instance with a pan where we'd sort of made adaptations in the house. At this point now, my partner, who I'm with, we recently married, had moved in with me, and he was looking after me when I was having lots of falls, injuries, twisted ankles, A&E admissions for cutting my leg open, for example, needing stitches because my right hand had lost the grip and stuff, and that had result in not being able to lift a plate, not being able to lift a cup, not being able to cook or manage certain loads effectively. During the same time as well, I also unluckily also had a right side rotator cuff injury, which had to be operated on as well twice. So I had a breakdown of loss of movement as well in this side of my arm. So there were lots of different things going on. Acute voice loss because I got fibromyalgia diagnosis from pain episodes, and all these things anyway sit underneath this umbrella apparently of FND, which is where the neurons in your mind sort of don't communicate properly with the rest of your body. And the biggest trigger for this is stress. So emotional stress. And what I've had to do, because I've spent a lot of the time being bedbound during this time, not being able to, look after my daughter in the way I've wanted to, not being able to look after myself, as say a lot of excess weight gain, lots of worry around my hypertension was sort of then cascading at around 100 and like that 200 odd over 120. So I was at stroke level for good sort of 9 months while this was being sorted. That was also adding on to lots of panic and anxiety about the fact that, I'm going to die prematurely, and, heart issues with the sleep apnea. There were lots of delays at the time over COVID, getting diagnosis and getting adequate care through the NHS because they were obviously massively overwhelmed. So I was battling a lot of different illnesses here, around sort of 15 chronic anemia. So there's probably a few more that I'm actually even kind of forgetting what I'm explaining them to you. But I was tackling at sort of trying to navigate through the NHS at a point when they're overwhelmed, trying to sort of sort my own internalization of my mental health issues out, my lack of mobility and my reliance on my partner who I hadn't been with that long as well, and the guilt associated with that. And yeah, so it's been a bit of a battle, but I'm happy, and I practice gratitude, which is one of the biggest things that I've got from this to share, is that I've had to really sort of dig deep during this time, and I've had to really focus on what was going right. And what was going right, i.e. that I'd got a loving, supportive partner who was, sort of moving heaven and earth to care for me and sort of help me through this time, and picking up the slack when we needed someone to do that. And, I'm forever grateful to him for that, still now and always will be. I've got a beautiful, beautiful daughter, lovely home. And I had to start really digging deep into the things then that were going right. As I know, I've had something nice to eat today. I'm going to, look at how pretty it is outside in the garden, look at the sunshine, look at how pretty that tree is there, listen to the wind going past. And I've had to really focus on the whole mindfulness journey of this event. And I'm here today, I'm breathing, I'm okay, or and getting the small wins out of every single situation in life. And that started with doing a lot of journaling. It started with doing about the fact that my daughter had done something well in school, as I say, or I started adapting art. I started to go to art lessons. I started to go to Reiki, sound baths, reflexology, massages. I had to utilize all of the resources that were available to me. And I'm not going to make any mistakes about this, because some things are free. You can go for a walk in nature and it's amazing. You can go for a wild swim if you can do it safely and a location. You can do journaling with a pen and paper, pick up a meditation episode off the internet for free. These things are all available and they're free, but sadly there is also a massive cost implication as well in this that I've had to incorporate. And I feel for a lot of people that I'm aware that don't have the facility to go for massages or go to Reiki sessions somewhere and pay someone to do it. But what they can do is they can learn to do Reiki themselves, and then you can you can perform it on your own body, because again it's lots of mindfulness techniques. I had lots of reflexology. Again, it comes at a cost. You do have to be able to sort of, unfortunately there's been a lot of expenditure as well in order to get myself back to this position. And I know that a lot of people in the disability sector, or if they're off work and they can't work, or they're having financial problems because they can't manage their finances at the time because of overwhelm, it's really, you've got to try and tap into, if there's a free advice line, if you can self-refer to different wellbeing centres locally, but again, they are overwhelmed. So it might be, checking out if you've got a life insurance policy, or even a couple of times, I spoke to, bizarrely, like the bank or something, and they actually said to me, when I spoke to them and I had to tell them updates about, that I'm neurologically, like my memory isn't working great, and I can't remember if I've had this conversation with you or not, or, what was the outcome, or can you put this on an email for me, because I'm not going to be able to retain this information and remember what we've been talking about. A couple of them volunteered to actually offer me free support around mental health stuff as well. And they said that there was free classes and things that they could put me in touch with. So different things like that. Maybe if anybody's listening to this and wants to tap into those features, the banks as well, even or even like your home insurance, sometimes they can offer you these services for free, and it's worth exploring if they're there. Definitely if you're employed.
But there's one or two things that you've mentioned there I wouldn't necessarily have thought about getting that sort of help. I was going to ask you, Jodie, there's
Yeah.
a lot you've been through, and during the time when you were on your own and as a single mum, can I ask you about how you managed to keep going during some of those dark times? What was it that kept you on top?
With well, when I was a single mum, you mean, and I was having a day like that? Is that what you mean? Sorry, Martin. Yeah. So I mean, I just couldn't kind of perform. So the only bit of energy that I did have, I had to prioritize my daughter with. So I had to ensure that, if I'd only got the energy to, make something to eat for one of us, that I had to prioritize doing that for her. Or if I had to, at the time, because we were homeschooling, because a lot of the country was locked down, my mum and dad were really good as well. My dad, now bless him, passed away 18 months ago, but my mum and dad were really good. They'd come round and sort of, we couldn't do the social contact thing, but they dropped something at the front gate for me so that I could bring it in, and for my daughter. But I mean, I had to just sort of prioritize her basic care, because it was a case that there wasn't, my basic care just completely went out of the window. And I think it's a bit of a cycle, because I couldn't work. I had to either ring in work sick, or I had to try and sort of make excuses, or I had to wait until she was in bed or having naps to try and catch up on stuff. So my cortisol levels would have been constantly so high, constantly, that, and you're just on that kind of fight or flight mode. And I think for me, I was probably on fight mode constantly until I sort of reached that complete burnout, because it's not, unless you're unlucky enough to, I guess, have a stroke or just a big heart attack, it's a gradual kind of progression, and your body will keep throwing things at you that you may keep ignoring because you're like, I've got flu-like symptoms, I've had a full night's sleep, but I feel awful. I can't remember, if I've just done this or why I've walked into the room, or, my chest's hurting me, or I'm struggling moving about now. But you ignore it because you're thinking, well, I've got a mortgage to pay for. I've got an employer that's got a deadline that's got to be in. I've got to push through because I've got my child. I've got to do this, so your own basic care needs keep going further and further and further down the spectrum of your own importance, because you're juggling what you think is important. And your body, like I say, it's so important to listen to your body, because your body will keep throwing stuff at you until ultimately you've got no other choice than to listen. And consultants were having conversations with me for a while where they were saying, in the run up to, let's say, me making a number of changes, and they kept saying you need to really think about the stress that you're putting on yourself, and about what you want either the next half of your life to look like, whether you're going to be here or not. And different consultants, when I was finally, I'd go private because the NHS delays were massive. My doctor wasn't referring me, kept saying, oh, you don't fit that profile, you don't fit that profile, you're too young. And I finally went private as saying, you see the exact same consultants, but you just get on with them a lot quicker. And they, multiple ones were echoing this to me, and I still was like, in that state of, but I've got bills to pay, and I've, because I'd got a really successful career at this point, and, my mortgage was of the level that I'd worked up to, and my car finance was at the level that I'd worked up to. And then all of a sudden, as say, this kind of perfect storm happens, and and it's a case of, I guess, and I'm being pulled in so many different priorities of just sort of, let's say, man up, put your big girl boots on, everybody else in the same situation as you, come on. You're hearing from one angle, and you've got the guilt of, well, I've got to push through, I've got to keep turning up then, because I'm responsible to these people and I owe them stuff too. And then, as say, sort of the decline kept happening, and I had to start putting myself first, because the exact same analogy about the aeroplane mask coming down, you know what I'm saying, about make sure you put your own oxygen mask on before you help the person next to you, because you're not going to be able to help them if you're dead. It's like that kind of analogy.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah,
to
no,
put your own
I
oxygen mask
absolutely,
on first to save yourself, and then you can try and save everyone else. And that's what I had to do for my own life and my own life. And sorry.
yeah, I absolutely hear that. That situation of realizing. Did you find it was a situation where you're getting all these consultancies and the people telling you, Jodie, you need to look after yourself, you need to put yourself first? And actually, was there were you aware of a kind of denial about that, or almost not wanting to hear it because your minds and your
I think
thoughts are
it's
on other
just
things about your daughter or all the other distractions?
I think it's just that we're
Was there a
conditioned, aren't we?
certain point? Yeah.
I think we're just
Was
conditioned
there a magic point
that,
when you realised?
well, when it probably seemed hopeless that anyone was probably going to listen to me, and that I needed to put my own health first, because ultimately the sad reality is you're replaceable, and nobody's gonna, well, you're replaceable, aren't you, to a lot of people, but you're not to your family. I'm not replaceable to my mum and dad. I'm not
Yeah.
replaceable to my daughter. I'm not replaceable to my husband, or at least I might be, but I hope I hope not so quickly. But
Certainly, from a working point of view, from a working point of view, we discovered that we were replaceable at work, don't we?
to answer your question, yeah, you are replaceable to a lot of people, and people will keep pushing, because unless they can physically see with a lot of stuff, unless they can physically see the fact that you've lost a limb and you're maybe shooting blood out there and then on the spot, and they think, shit, that looks like a lot of blood, maybe they're going to pass out or die soon. Things like fibromyalgia, mental health, even even like muscle tension dysphonia, where like my voice and stuff was talking like this, and I'd lose my voice sometimes for a day, but people would think, well, that's just like, oh, you got a sore throat, you'll be all right. But no, it's like my nervous system completely shutting down, that I can't speak, and I might therefore then have to have a pen and paper with me for 24 hours because I can't speak and communicate, and that causes a lot of problems then when you mute. My partner, again, I'm trying to put a fun light on it, but my partner might say, no, well, that's got a break from the talking, but it's the real massive problems. But when you can't really associate with them, like somebody's got IBS and everyone can say, well, I've got a bad stomach. I've had a bad stomach before. Well, it's not the same as having IBS, or someone could say, I've had a bad day. I have a bad day and I just get on with it. It's not the same as having depression, clinical depression. It's not the same. Someone saying, I've got, oh, I've had a headache before. It's not the same as someone then who's got like a tumour. God bless them. It's like there's spectrums and there's completely different levels. A lot of people maybe don't either have empathy or they don't want to know, but ultimately everybody else they've got other agendas. So you need to make yourself the priority. You need to focus on you, because it is true, you are replaceable to practically 99% of the people that you know. And I've been really bloody lucky that I've had a good support network, because if this had happened to a lot of other people, I think, I don't know what had happened. I can't get life insurance. I haven't been able to get life insurance for a number of years now. I mean, I've not tried again recently. I'd like to try, maybe see if anything's changed. But I've not been able to get it for a number of years, and that's okay. But what I have done is I've looked at all the ways that I can remove stress from my life and bring myself into the present moment and say, what have I got now? And that's been, as I say, the breathing exercises, the mindfulness, the meditation, the reading when I've been able to, because there's been a lot of time where I've not been able to read anything because it's just been like brain overwhelm. It just doesn't go in. And I know that when I put too much on my plate now, I go backwards. I've, in the last 12 months, since I've made other changes around circumstances, I've lost about 10 inch off my waist. I've lost about 6 stone of the 7 stone that I put on from all the steroids and everything. So I've lost 6 stone of that. My blood pressure's a lot better. My symptoms are a lot less often and a lot less dramatic when they happen. So I still get them. I still get every now and again, I push myself a bit too far and I might be on the sofa for a week. But whereas I used to be in bed, now I can probably make it to the sofa and sort of maybe have the laptop on my knee. But, I can do more stuff. I've started a new business, and I'm doing the advocating that I'm doing now. My nutrition's a lot better. I focus on nutrition is massive. We haven't really touched on it, but it's huge environmentally, what you're putting into your body. We've got 2 dogs, because the disability people said about getting dogs to force myself out, because when I've got really bad fatigue or vertigo or whatever, it's like there's a lot of reasons to not be doing stuff, but on the days then that I can, they've got me out of the house and they've encouraged me to get out. So they've been a wonder, like amazing for me. Like I say, I've done a lot of positive stuff, and I'm really proud of myself, Martin. I've come a long way, and I want to help other people now be able to show them that, that they can come a long way too. Because I'm not a consultant, I'm not a medical expert. I can only speak about what's happened with myself. But, I've just had an asthma review a couple of days ago and they've stopped taking my inhalers, so my respiratory system's a lot better. I have spoke to the hospital recently because I was having about 8 weeks of, I was waking up being sick and my sleep apnea mask, so not waking up and being sick, but waking up being sick. And it's because the air pressure, they want to put me on a different machine because they've set to monitor me now, because they've said that it's either got a lot better or something, but positively. So I've got to get a new machine next week. I'm looking at weaning myself off some injections that I've been on for about 3 years. Now I've just done a boot camp for the first time in my life. They were amazing recently, last week in Norfolk, and they taught me again a lot more about the importance and the value of like your first foundation being your sleep, and then your your nutrition and getting your right macro levels and stuff as well, and then you weight training as you get older. So just from that week I managed, I mean, it's absolutely mental but amazing. I've reduced 2% body fat and put on a couple of pound of muscle mass on my skeletal mass, which is great for avoiding things like osteoporosis when you're older, and lost another 3 inch off my waist. So you know what, it's like I'm so goddamn grateful for all of this stuff, because I'm looking better, I'm feeling better, I'm breathing better, I'm eating better, I'm being able to take on more stuff, trying to get back into, it's only going to be on a small scale for now, but because I have to pace myself really carefully, as say with this stuff, but I'm making lots of steps forward and I'm helping other people, hopefully, and inspiring them, because like I say, I'm not an expert, I'm not a consultant in neurology or any of that stuff, and I've had to learn so much about this stuff, so it still confuses me. But around 50% of people with FND can end up in wheelchairs, or with they can get seizures. Thank God I haven't, touch wood. But and it's not to say that I won't again at any other point, because these conditions aren't just going to go away, but I'm managing them better and my quality of life is improving, and networking with other people now, people like yourself. And if I'm able to spread some sort of joy or some love from that, or some inspiration, I really want to be able to do that and say to other people that, I've had or got 15 different bloody chronic conditions here, and I'm learning to manage them a bit better each day, and I'm
Yeah.
doing more, regaining more
One of the
independence,
things,
and can be done.
one of the key, one of the key things I've heard you say earlier on is that the matter of gratitude and expressing that and
Massive,
feeling that gratitude
massive.
for the things that the things that we have got, rather than focusing too much on perhaps desires and or needs or wants, or whatever those things might be. It's simple, and I'm so pleased that you're involved with the mindfulness side of things, because that's something I've been doing for quite a few years now. Um, that's what I did when I was working. For the most part, that was the most important part for me, uh, of my work, was sharing that with the clients that I had. Um, there is something very special about, like I said, just being in nature, just
100%.
accepting. There's a thing about there's a thing that I worked out that to do with pain, in that if you try to fight pain too much, it gets stronger. Whereas there's a point where you may or may not agree with me on this, but because of a different situation. But there's a situation where, to a certain extent, if there's an acceptance of the pain, the body kind of naturally, there's like it allows natural pain relief to go into the body. And that's something I've learned this years ago with toothache. I had a really bad toothache on the way to run a group at work one evening, and I decided to actually just not to ignore it, but just to accept, to allow it to flow over me. And I found that by doing that, I was able to manage it, and I was able to focus on other things rather than focusing on the pain directly. Is that something that you've experienced, or is it something you don't agree with? I'd be interested to know what you think about that.
My fibromyalgia, again, it's really weird. I'm still, again, don't really fully understand this, but I know that if I'm stressed or I get upset, it tends to hit me the next day, and I get really severe fatigue. And I mean, like, literally, I am wiped out the next day. And it seems to also, again, don't want to go into it too much, but like the age and stuff that I'm at, and a woman having like menstrual cycles. When I'm on my cycle as well, it's massively affected by that. I've also found that it's also sleep. So when I was on the boot camp, bizarrely, because I was getting probably I was probably sleeping more there, than I even sleep at home. And I've always been a deep sleeper, a big sleeper. And I had about probably have about 9 hours sleep here a night, not 8 to 9 hours sleep here a night. But in the boot camp, I was probably having around 10, 11 hours sleep sometimes a night. So I was having more sleep than probably ever, but I was feeling better than ever. And then I've come back, and then 2 nights I've had a slightly later sleep because I decided that I wanted to watch a movie, the end of a movie, 2 nights. Now, it wasn't late, me going to sleep, but what it was later than normal, probably by about an hour and a half. And I had the pains in the night because I get a lot of pains in that happen that wake me up at night from fibromyalgia. So I get them in my wrists, my forearms, my ankles, my shins and my feet. And that I seem to get them around there. Now, if you were to, in the daytime, I don't get the pain that I notice other than when you touch certain parts of my body and I'm like, and you can literally just, when it's inflared, touch me like that. And I'm like, jump. And if I also, with the fibro, sorry, my mind's going off, but it can create, like, again, it can create weakness and stuff. So, and the brain fog. So there's a lot of, I'm still learning about it, but I've found that, as I say, adequate, decent sleep. So having a sleep routine, they call it like sleep, like a good sleep hygiene, don't they? They call it good sleep hygiene factors. So I go into bed at the same time, not using your phone or a screen before so long before going to sleep, different things like that. And they will affect it massively. So if I stay in those kind of rhythms, my fibromyalgia symptoms become a lot more manageable. I can't sort of master this one about my cycle because I've just had 4 or 5 days where I've not been able to walk the dogs around the field. I've had to literally just flip the boot of the car, let them run out, and just sort of literally plod or not even make it that far, let them bolt around and then put them back in the car because I've not been able to I've had too much fatigue to be sort of walking around the house, walking on the field. And then today again, 2 days or so after my cycle's finished, I've gone back to, I've been able to walk around the field. So how can I affect that one? I don't know. This is all like a massive learning curve for it. And so a lot of it again comes down to learning to listen to your body, listen to what's affected it. Is it because you've had a bad diet that week? You've not been eating clean? Is it because you've had late nights? Well, I always have late nights. Well, that doesn't mean it's always been good for you. It's probably always been bad for you, but it's just that your cup can only take so much, and it's when your cup overflows. So my cup was obviously overflowing with too much stress going into it, whereas I'd always been able to work lots of hours before. I'd sort of managed to get
Yeah.
through being a single mum and working, but then everything comes together in one go, let's say COVID and other health issues. And this perfect storm kind of manifests where the cup is overflowing everywhere and you just can't manage the situation physiologically.
Yeah.
So it's about sort of tuning into your own body and knowing it about, have you got an upset stomach? Well, you don't know why. Well, are we worried about something? Are we anxious? It might not be because you ate something funny. It could be, an IBS thing because you like your microbiome and stuff's off because your cortisol levels are too high, and you've got to refine into this stuff. And I do encourage people to learn because you
There's a
don't,
big
your
I
body
think there's a big
better than anyone.
connection. Yeah, there's a big connection, I think, between the yeah, between your mind, your brain, your thoughts, and your emotions. Big connection between emotions and and your physical
Yeah,
body as well. And I think
huge. Yeah,
there's more and more evidence of that coming out now that we're more likely to be. Sometimes we can be unwell. I can remember times. I mean, I had quite a few jobs through my working life, and I'd often see it in other people. You start a new job, the first thing that happens is you get a cold, and I think that happens
oh yeah,
is because the stress. Try you're going doing something different. You're going to a new environment, meeting new people. Your brain's
that's
taking in more and
interesting.
more additional information, and it takes its toll on the physical body. It's a bit
Yeah,
like
yeah.
going visiting somewhere different. When you see it in a different environment, the brain's doing so much processing that we become very, very tired, and don't have the energy that we would have if we were around familiar surroundings. It's
One of the
simply
things.
I seriously yeah, it's just, so it's having not that you can change that, but having the knowledge of that allows us the ability to be able to manage it and to be aware of it before it comes along and put things in place to to be able to get the best out of
Well, one
what it is.
one of the things that
Do you agree?
frustrates me, absolutely, because one of the things that frustrates me, and I don't know if it's the same in other countries, because I'm told by some people that work in the medical profession that it's not, but because we treat all our symptoms, don't we, or we treat all of our conditions separately, i.e., like I say, 15 different conditions means, 15 different consultants. But it's one person, it's one Jodie, one body. And the thing is, the food that I eat fuels my whole body. The air that I breathe fuels my whole body. The thoughts that I put into my mind, affect my whole body because your nervous system and your head is controlling your whole body. Your stomach, therefore your microbiomes and things, are, like I say, fueling your whole body. There's a lot of disconnect where people still sort of think, oh, well, that's that, so that can't be that. And it's like, it's all connected. Everything is connected. And I think this is where, modern science has definitely got its place. It's amazing. It's helped me no end when I've needed it to. But chronic conditions and stuff, the more I sort of learn about holistical things, um, you know,
Yeah,
there's only so much that it can do because every medication that you have affects something else. I have to take medications, or I have been doing, to stop the side effects of other medications that I've been having. And then I might be taking a third medication to knock out the first and the second symptom side effect. And I'm just like, so I'm like, and then I'm like, God, I'm taking so many tablets here. And I'm like, and again, I'm reading that online, well, you're more likely going to have falls when you take 7 or 8 tablets because of X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
And I'm like, so that's why I've tried to wean myself off. So again, I'm not advocating anybody not taking anything that the GP says. If the GP says take it, take it. I'm not a doctor. I'm only talking about my own experience here. I've taken the medications when I felt that I need to. I still take medication now. There's certain medication that I think that I can't not take, or I don't feel comfortable not taking because I think it'll do me more harm than good. But there's certain medication as well that I'm actually now currently working on trying to stop and replace it with other stuff with the help of my pharmacist and GP. But there's other medication, like I say, that I've had to then just say to myself, do you know what? This can't be doing me any good now. I feel like this condition is somewhat a hell of a lot better than it was a year, 2 years ago. And I want to stop taking the other medications that I'm taking because I take that. So I've started weeding myself off these things. And I mean, I've got no idea, like I say, I haven't got a crystal ball. I don't know what's around the corner. None of us do. I don't know, what the sleep clinic are going to say to me next week. I'm really bloody hoping that they're going to tell me that that's got better, or what, I can hope or dream or manifest that they might tell me that, what, you haven't got it anymore and I don't need to use that cat machine. But if I do need to continue using it, that's okay too. And if I get to come off it for a bit because it means I'm doing something right, happy days. And if I then have to end up using it again in the future because of age or there's something else out of my control, that's okay too. It's all a journey. But for now, I'm just really proud of myself. Like I say, that my quality of life has improved a lot more of late because I've alleviated a lot more stress, that I've exposed myself to a lot of unnecessary stress, a lot of toxic environments that I've not needed to be in because I've been conditioned to think that, I'm meant to be this, what it's meant to be like. Life is meant to be this difficult or hard, or it's okay that I'm treated unfairly because lots of people are treated unfairly. It's okay that I'm because there's someone else next to me that's also being treated unfairly, and I've had to just sort of take a lot of ownership and undress a lot of those conditionings that I've had of what's acceptable, what's not, and the fact that I'm here for my family first, I'm here for myself first, and what is important in life, like the designer gear, the money, the expensive restaurant, all that stuff that, has been nice when I've been doing other things before, but I've never had so much joy or happiness from being able to, like I say, do a wild swim, walk through nature, or spend time just with my dogs, or just watch my daughter and actually be present in the moment about the fact when she's telling me about something, rather than being, I can't talk to you, I'm busy, I've talked to you in a bit, I can't deal with it right now, I've got to do this, it's on a deadline, because that's the important stuff. The important stuff is what my daughter remembers about me when I'm dead and gone, not to be pessimistic, but just because, my mum and dad are older, and my dad, as say, passed away recently at 80 almost, but it's like it's memory, isn't it, that stays. And I want my memories with my daughter to be of not me being in bed because I'm sick and I'm ill and I'm stressed all the time. I want them to be of me being present and stuff with her, and me being happy, and me saying, come and have a look at here. And I think, and a lot of it's going back to basics, and remember that you could talk about this forever. So, I know we've been talking about it a lot, but you could literally talk about it forever because
Yeah, no, it's
we're humans, but we used to live a lot simpler than what we do now, and life now has become so much more complex and heavy than what it was. And technology and stuff has only been around 50, 60, 70 years, and we're struggling lymphatically and everything to keep up with all of that stuff and those pressures. And your body, as they say, and a lot of wellness people speak about, your body can't differentiate between if you're stressed because a saber-toothed tiger's chasing you and wants to eat you, or if you're stressed because you're in a traffic jam and you're late for an appointment, and then you're running late to get home to pick your daughter up, and then you're late to put the dinner on and you haven't got anything to do, or you've got to reply to 100 emails. Your body, if you're always in that constant state of stress, loads of parts of your organs and things switch down to do with your digestive system, where so then you're not taking the nutrients out of the food properly, you're then not oxygenating your body properly. And I'm sure you must speak about this stuff with your clients and things all the time, and it's been a steep learning curve for me. And as I say, I've only really fully taken on all this stuff fully because I've
I've done
had to.
a lot of I've yeah, I've been doing a lot of podcasts recently along those lines, along those subjects, around, particularly around mental health issues, but also that linked into physical health as well. Simply about, managing the clutter of your mind in your days. When I'm going to be doing shortly about that, and they're just kind of really quite fairly straightforward things to do. They're not terribly difficult, and when you kind of read them, you think, oh, it's kind of obvious, really. But what we tend to do is we don't always hear it. We don't always take it in. The idea
Yeah.
of sharing that out with people is to say, because when I talk to people, and I talk to my clients when I was working, I often say to them, I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to me, because I need to take my own advice sometimes, because it's so easy to just carry on, regardless, then wonder why things don't quite work out. I think, in terms of recovery, there's there's two key aspects, and we know that in Western society that you go and see the doctor, and 9 times out of 10 you get a medication, and that's um, the physiological, that's the medical side of it. But there's also the psychosocial side, which I think is very, very important. And I don't think any medications work properly unless we operate both the medical side and the psychosocial side alongside each other. Because I think then if your mind is right with it, it helps the medication to work as it's designed to do. Um, Whereas
Yeah.
I think if there's a not the right approach, if we don't have the right approach to it, then we'll end up focusing on, and then actually then believing that it's not going to work anyway, and they just end up going down that dreadful
Placebo.
spiral, you know. Yeah.
Placebo's real though, as well. Even placebo is real because all clinical drugs are tested against placebo. So placebo is a real thing, which is that the mind is really powerful because they have to, in order for a drug to work, I think it is. Again, I don't know the facts because I keep saying it, I'm not medically trained, but from what I've read, I think it's like it has to have like a 0.1 or 1% or something difference in order to be seen effective. But that's because if you look at the stuff, placebo is still working for loads of people. So even whatever it is, people are, oh, well, that's all in your head. Well, do you know what? If it is all in my head and it's all working, that's amazing then. Still, let's spread some of this then to other people who also then will be happy to know that they can, if they believe something will work, it will. And if you believe it won't, it won't, because this is the power of your mind. And they spoke as well on, they touched on it as well, Martin, at the boot camp, about, I think it's called I might be saying it wrong, asymptomatic or sympathetic nervous system. And when they do the training and different stuff, from 4 p.m. you start winding down. So you take your shoes off and you walk round, then the rest of the time no shoes on, so that you're grounding. And then you can do stretching exercises and things, but nothing else that puts your body under any cortisol, because by the time then that you eat, you're in a calmer state again to be eating and digesting your food, and then you're nourished. And then, as I say, there's no TVs and things in the rooms, because there is in the main room. It's like, if like you can go sit in a communal room if you want to go watch TV. It's not like a convent or anything, but it's in order to just get you to wind down, basically, so that you're in that, so that your body goes into a rest state, and then before you pick up that extra stress, the same way as you would do if you were doing HIIT training, increasing and decreasing your heart rate and getting better results. It's the same with your nervous and lymphatic systems. If you're constantly in the fight or flight mode because of your job, you're rushing to, like, say, pick your kids up, then dealing with your kids and the responsibility of your kids. And this is the same for men and women and couples and single
Mhm.
parents. But then you're going from that constant stress there, then you're dealing with, oh, I'll just do this work that I didn't do earlier because I'm now picked the kids up, so I'll finish that off and work late. Then I've got to reply to this, then I've got to look after an elderly parent or something. you're never switching off. And you just mentioned before that, you know, people hear it, but they're not really fully hearing it. It's because they're so chronically stressed and distracted through all the other responsibilities that we've tied ourselves up with, that you don't really have time to stop and slow down and think about this stuff, because you can only really think about it like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but anyway, I've got to do this. That makes sense, but I go, I've got that deadline. There's no...
It can be frightening. I think when you get yourself so busy that the thought of actually stopping for a minute can be actually quite scary. Because
Took me a
I can
year.
remember a time in my life when yeah, it's all of a sudden you
Took me a
go,
year.
wait a minute, yeah, yeah.
For a year of being off sick,
So
for a year of being off sick, Martin, I'd sit there and my body would literally go, got to be doing something, got to do something, I've got to do something, I've got nothing to do there, what am I supposed to be doing, but I've got to do something. And I could not get out of that. I need to stand up, I need to sit down, no, what am I doing? I need to, like, I could not. I'd try and sit in the garden and I just could not get out of that state for for over a year. And then it took that time, a year, until I then started to be able to find that I could then start to make positive changes of going, do you know what, I can have a walk and I can switch off for a bit. And then I'd still go back and still have like these environmental stresses going on. But as I say, for about a year, the first year, because I was so used to being constantly on the go, never physically stopping. And people would, you know, they'd celebrate me for that. They'd celebrate me for always being busy, always having stuff on the go, always juggling loads of plates, always being the top performer, not needing much sleep. But all that stuff, ultimately, you know, like I say, it's like they haven't celebrated me when I've gone through a, you know, a burnout, and then, do you know what I mean? And said,
yeah,
it's because it's in the past, isn't it? That was who I used to be, and this is who I am now. And the more I've got into the
yeah,
holistical mindset, the less I can go back to that corporate world, because I know that it's, you know, people might go, oh, it's woo woo or whatever, and but it's really not. I'm just living more primitively, whereas before I was living probably more fatally, because I wasn't actually living in alignment of what my real kind of values and things were, because I was just conditioned that I needed to be constantly on the go and, you know, don't have much sleep and, you know, rush about, because that was success. That was success for me, to be really busy like that. But no, it wasn't success. It was just putting me in an early grave. So I'm much prouder of the person who I am now than the person who I was before. But I had to go through the whole journey in order to be where I am now. So everything happens for a reason. I'm grateful, therefore, of everything. But, you know, it's just as say, it's, you know, I think that maybe everything happens for a reason, because I'm not afraid to speak up and to sort of talk about stuff and to help people. So maybe everything...
to be able to help people and how that's going to manifest and actually, you know, what it actually is.
Betty, but I'd like to think what I'm doing at the moment, it feels right, it feels better. I'd like to help inspire other people by perhaps saying, you know, I was really bad, but now, if you look at me now, I'm feeling a lot better and I'm looking a lot better. So that means that if I can do it, there's nothing special about me. Someone else can do it too. I'd like to hopefully think that I might be the inspiration for someone to say, do you know what? I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm going to, you know, prioritize myself and put myself first, or I am going to listen to my body a bit more. Or, do you know what? I don't want to get as bad as that girl then perhaps was experiencing. I'm going to, like, this is the sort of the final thing, because it's lots of little messages that you hear that compound up that will make you make a change. Travel, 15 to 22% of travelers have one form of an accessible travel need. So I started Alchemy Souls Travel to talk about places that offer accessible trips, sensory friendly escapes, and that's been going really well since July. And I'm doing advocacy, I'm speaking for myself to be able to again inspire other people. And so I mean, I had quite a bit of interest, to be honest, especially from the neurodiverse population. I mean, it's massive, isn't it? Again, for whatever reason, late
Yeah,
diagnosis, medications, diets, external factors, just, the fact that, Jupiter's always been there, but we only found out about it 100 years ago. I mean, I don't know. I don't know again why there's so much
yeah.
more, but it's a massive thing, neurodiversity right now. And so I've had a lot of
It
interest
is, and
from that background.
I'm very much of the opinion. I'm very much of the opinion with the neurodiversity is that it does get pathologized, and that could
It does get what, sorry?
cause stigmas to come about. Gets pathologized. It causes some stigma. You've got this, or somebody else has got that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Neurodiversity isn't that. It's just different. It's just that we're all a spectrum of different people, and their brains are all wired differently. And why not celebrate that? Let's celebrate the fact that we're all different, and
And
we all think
that's what I'm
because I
doing.
think some
I'm
of the
celebrating
innovations
it.
that we get are yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
apologizing
yeah.
for it.
It's
It's like people have always said I'm a bit
yeah,
crazy, a bit out there, a bit, a bit different. But and then when I got my diagnosis, all my best friends were like, "Oh, well, that's no surprise." But to me, it was a massive surprise. I had no idea, but now I know it, and now I'm meeting more people like it. It's the clearest thing I've ever seen. And if people want to judge me on that, you know what? That's them. I said this on a podcast I was on the other day, but that's them. That says a lot more about them than it does me, because I'm not judging anyone. I'm not that way inclined. If anything, I've always been the other way to a fault. And if people want to judge me because I've got a label or anything like that, I say that says a lot more about them as a human being than it does me, because I'm open and welcoming to anyone, whether they're different, whether they're the same as me, whatever. If that means I am different, I'm proud to be different, and I'm going to embrace every single bit of that, because, as I said the other week, I've never wanted to follow the crowd. I've never wanted to blend in or mix in, and I've never wanted to be the same as everyone else, because I'm me, I'm an individual, and I'm really, and it's probably been a blessing from God that I've had the diagnosis that I've had now, because all the stuff, like I say, of when, I was, people had said, yeah, you've got to be like this, you've got to be like that way. And me always sort of thinking, but I'm not. And why am I why do I feel like this? And why is it so hard? And that beating myself up. I now know that I don't need to. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I know that, you know what? I'm a bit different, and that's okay. I like being different. I like knowing then um, that I'm not broken. I like knowing I'm not broken. I'm just a bit different. And who wants to be the same as everybody else? Like, I really don't want to be the same as everyone
yeah,
else, because nobody interesting was ever the same as everybody else. Einstein, Bill Gates, whoever it was, and Ava Parks,
yeah,
whoever it was in history, they were all outspoken, and they were all, Nelson Mandela, because we're coming up to Black History Month, aren't we? They were all outspoken, and they were all the ones that went against the curve and went against the trend. That's me. That's me. So I'm
yeah.
happy to be different. I'm proud to be different, and I'm happy now that I can say
I
this is
think
why I've had those problems with anxiety and depression all my life, because I'm just different. I'm like them, and I want to be like them, and I can be like them by helping
I
other
can
people.
suggest, Jodie, that I can suggest that I think that a lot of your recovery and your feeling better is down to the fact that you you've got in touch with your values, so you've learned what your values are, and you've got some self acceptance.
Yeah,
I
100% as well. Yeah.
personally, for me, I found that it's when we start being our true selves that actually that we begin to heal, not only mentally but physically.
I was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
going to add on
Go on.
one thing
Yeah,
as well,
sure.
just
Okay.
because it's nice, is that we just got accepted by the RSPCA as well to foster dogs. So fostering dogs, again, something that's more in line with my values. doesn't cost anything. It's paid for by the charity. They're actually overwhelmed with dogs right now, but because of different circumstances, again, that, we sort of hear about in the media. So they all need a new home. And, that's in line with my values. I want to foster kids. That's in line with my values. That's who I am. The advocating, like I say, that I want to do to help people, that is in line with who I am. So it's not the other stuff. And it's just like you say, we've got to find out who you actually really are internally and what that looks about. Yeah, and do more of that. Tony Robbins, I went to see him once in oh my god, an event. He was amazing, like a week event. But he talks about this stuff too, and it's so important. So yeah, do what's, as long as you're not hurting anyone, because don't do what's in line with who you are if it's bad. Only
Yeah,
do it if it's good.
yeah.
I've just been watching that thing on Netflix the other night that everyone's watching. You see, that's just come out, so that's why I'm saying it. Only do it if it's good. But yeah, so
Yeah, yeah. No,
follow
absolutely.
authentically
No, I,
in the
I,
right way.
I, I agree with that entirely. Okay, well, Jodie, thank you. I think we do have a kind of connection because an awful lot of what you talked about today, I associate with. In fact, it's almost been you've almost kind of preceded a lot of the sort of podcasts I've done solo myself recently. So if you've not checked them out, you probably find that if you listen to a few of them, watch a few of them, you'll see. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we talked about that values and all that sort of thing. So and for people tuning in, people that watch this when this goes out, then please get in contact with Jodie. I'm sure she would be happy to talk to you a bit more about what's going on for her and what she's doing. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Martin. Thanks very much.